Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
Hi everybody, Ezra Levant here. How you doing? I'm just going to adjust my audio for 1 second. It's great to be with you. Every day at 12 noon we do a live stream. I like to come on as often as I can. I used to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we're so busy with the fight back part of what we do that sometimes I ask my colleagues to stay in my place. We're streaming to you live on 4 platforms. Are we on all 4 platforms today? So YouTube is our traditional platform, but when they whimsically and capriciously, and I would suggest maliciously, suspended us, demonetized us, we thought, yikes, we'd better find other ways of communicating with our viewers. We still have 1.5 million subscribers at YouTube, and we'll never abandon them. But we have to plan for the day where not the viewers, but where YouTube cuts us off. And so we've set up channels on rumble.com, which now regularly has more viewers for us than YouTube, which suggests that YouTube's been throttling us. On odyssey.com, which is a blockchain-based web server, a video server. And finally, superu.net, a Canadian startup with a free speech focus. So hello to folks there. The reason I say that is because I read that YouTube has just made its policy of censorship stronger. I mean, at what point do you just stop saying you're a platform and just say, okay, we only say what the FDA or the CDC or the DNC allows us to say? Like, at what point does YouTube cease to be YouTube? I mean, it's such a great name for a company. Tube, it's funny. It's like the old tube, cathode ray tube TV. Anyone under 50 probably doesn't even know what that is. But YouTube, you're in control. This is your tube. This is your TV station. That was the brilliant promise of YouTube in the early days. That's why people loved it. It was their tube. It wasn't, big tech. It wasn't Silicon Valley. It wasn't some billionaire oligarch. It's not YouTube anymore. It's their tube. They'll tell you what you can and cannot say. My point is, YouTube is just strict, made more strict. Their policy, you used to, until right now, you were not allowed to criticize COVID-19 vaccines. You were not allowed to challenge the narrative of where the vaccine came from. The virus came from. You're not allowed to discuss alternative remedies like ivermectin. Like, that's specifically right there in the rules. Like, they couldn't be more specific. But now they've expanded the scope of what they're going to ban, suspend, demonetize you for. Criticisms of any vaccines at all. I guess they got a really big payment from Pfizer. Could I even say that? I mean, there's things out there that I see that I just think that can't be authentic. That has got to be a paid ad by Big Pharma, except for it's just not marked as an ad. Let me show you. He used to be a comedian. Like 10 years ago, this guy had some jokes that were funny, and he had a delivery style that was funny. His name is Colbert. Look at this, and I ask you, is this funny at all? Is there even an attempt to be funny? Could this little sketch I'm about to show you, could this really be what the funniest writers and the funniest comedians in Hollywood think is entertainment? Or is this just a Pfizer ad that's not marked as such? I read that the booster is set to give Pfizer $26 billion in revenues. It's enormous. If you were a company and you knew that something could get you $26 billion, how much would you spend in advertising and propaganda and lobbying to ensure that happened? I mean, theoretically, you would spend $25 billion. You would spend whatever it took up to the amount you're going to get, theoretically. Obviously, the profit margin is a lot bigger than that. Would you spend $1 billion to guarantee 26? Of course you would. some of those ads would have the word Pfizer on them. But people are still resistant to trust a big pharmaceutical company. You would probably sponsor influencers, TikTokers, Instagrammers, YouTubers. You would probably sponsor them, and you would do your best to keep that sponsorship quiet, because if people thought, well, their influencer naturally was really jazzed about a vaccine, that would be more persuasive than if they said, I am now reading a sponsorship message from Pfizer. Look at this and tell me, is this actually comedy, or is this simply a Pfizer ad that is not properly marked? Take a look. That's great. That's entertainment. I'm really entertained. Okay, are you keeping note of who stops clapping first? Can I stop clapping now? Or are you keeping note of? I'm still clapping. The vaccine. Okay, can I stop clapping now? I have to keep clapping. Pfizer says I have to keep clapping for 60 seconds. Do I have to smile, or can I just do my? Can I look like this now? Do I have to smile? Because my mouth is getting tired from smiling. Please tell me that no one actually thinks that's entertainment. Please tell me that you realize that that is a sponsored product, an advertorial. It just lacks the ethics of a label. You know, I've been in the newspaper business. That's how I started, because I'm so old. I started before the internet. When I was a kid, I used to write for my school newspapers. And then when I became a little more of a grown-up, I kept writing for them. And you know, there was the dichotomy, tell me or sell me. Don't do both. You're going to tell me something, let it be your own authentic voice. You're going to sell me something, tell me that you're selling me, and that's fine. Sell me, you know, it's been said that the most honest thing about newspapers are the ads, and there's probably some truth to that. Tell me or sell me is a way of saying don't blur the two. Don't sell me without disclosing to me you're selling me. Do you think that that ex-comedian there thinks that's a funny set? Vaccine? So cool. The vaccine is cool, guys. Hey, young people. Hello, fellow youth. Do you want to be in the hippest scene? The hip scene for all you cats and kittens out there, cool cats, is the vaccine. All right, you guys talk like that, right? Because you're hip, and I am also. No, I'm sorry. I don't believe that that is authentic. I think that is inauthentic. I think that's what the fake news folks would call manipulated media. Not that it was electronically distorted, but that's bought and paid for. I simply don't believe that anyone believes that's entertainment or comedy. That's an ad that's unmarked. And my point is that that is allowed on YouTube, but skepticism about vaccines is not. They really are a merger. There's a merger between big tech, big pharma, and big government. It's all one. What's so amazing to me is that the parties of the left and the people of the left are so cool with this. I mean, when I was young, which was a long time ago, I acknowledge, big pharma was an easy enemy of the left. And I actually, frankly, stood up for big pharma because I know there are some miracles out there. I mean, there are some miracle cures to diseases that even a generation ago, people died from or got very sick from. The left thought that Big Pharma was rapacious, that it hid its side effects, that it made billions off of sickness. I mean, remember that line from Bono? There was a band in the 20th century called U2. We got a new producer editor coming on board. His name is Andrew, and he's been studying under Justin from the last week. Andrew, have you heard of this band from the 20th century called U2? Yeah, they've got this guy named Bono. That's not his real name. Yeah, and The Edge. Yeah, I like them. They were sort of my band when I was in my in the 90s. That's how old I am. I mean, like the 1990s, not the 1890s. And there was this great line that Bono had: "The rich stay healthy, and the sick stay poor." That to me was the sort of, we didn't use the word woke back then, but that was the standard college liberal line about Big Pharma. The rich stay healthy and the sick stay poor. It's like a couplet, isn't it? It's a very pithy. And then there's Chris Rock, who did a rant a while back about how if they ever found an AIDS cure, they wouldn't, he wasn't saying it in a conspiratorial way. He says the money's in the medicine, not the cure. I wonder if that comedy sketch is even allowed on YouTube. Now, Chris Rock has taken the 2 jabs and he still got sick, and he encouraged other people to get the jab because he got sick and he didn't want you to get sick. He was jabbed. Because of course the protected want the unprotected to get the protection that didn't protect the protected from the unprotected. Makes sense, right? I'm not sure how much we can even talk about on the YouTube platform, and we may have to move more and more to the platforms that are not just completely merged with Big Pharma. And just like Stephen Colbert is so clearly being sponsored, and you know what? Colbert himself might not be in on the deal, but I forget what company. Like what channel's Colbert with? CBS? Okay, so one of the largest corporate conglomerates in the world. They probably are co-owned by a pharmaceutical company. So probably the decision was made at the CEO level. They probably, have an 8-figure or 9-figure advertising deal. And so, Pfizer didn't talk to Colbert directly, but it wouldn't surprise me if Pfizer's VP talked to CBS's VP, and this whole thing was done. I'm sorry, you just don't get that kind of cringe naturally. I mean, late night TV isn't particularly funny these days, but that is not natural. What we saw there is not natural. You want to see what real journalism looks like? You want to see what courage looks like? You want to see what someone who is not bought and paid for by the establishment looks like? You want to see someone who's quick on his feet, who is confident in his facts, and in the moment of stress does not break? I'm talking about 2-time Rebbe Award winner Avi Yemini. Let me show you what happened. Melbourne, of course, is ground zero for the civil liberties assault in the name of the vaccine. Just to, before I get to Avi, I'm going to come to Avi in a minute. Let me show you what Ron DeSantis said. Ron DeSantis is the most freedom-oriented governor in America, of course. And I like him because he fights back, and he uses the levers of power that are properly his to use by virtue of the fact that he won the governor. He's the governor of Florida. And he's rare that way because there are plenty of Republican governors. In fact, I think Republicans have the majority of the states. And when Republicans have control of the House, which they used to, or the Senate, which they used to, they did not use all the levers which were theirs properly to use. The Democrats use every lever all the time, plus so many that are not allowed to. Ron DeSantis is one of the few governors who actually uses the tools at his disposal. And he had this comment the other day about Australia, so obviously he's watching videos of that country, which tells me most likely he's watching videos produced in part, including from our own Avi Yemini. Here's Ron DeSantis on Australia, and then I'll go to Australia. Take a look at Ron DeSantis.
You guys look what's going on in Australia right now. They're enforcing...
I'm not getting audio on that.
A year and a half, they're still enforcing lockdowns.
We had some audio problem. We're getting there. We're getting there. So he was just asked about enforcement and civil liberties. Here we go. Take a listen.
Anything that
Oh, wrong clip. We're getting there. I'm easy peasy.
You guys look what's going on in Australia right now. You know, they're enforcing, after a year and a half, they're still enforcing lockdowns by the military. And that's not a free country. It's not a free country at all. In fact, I mean, I wonder why we would still, have the same diplomatic relations when they're doing that. I mean, is Australia freer than China, communist China right now? I don't know. The fact that that's even a question tells you something has gone dramatically off the rails.
Yeah, the fact that it is even a question, our own Avi Yamini, who I just mentioned, he went to Hong Kong several times before it absolutely collapsed. And yeah, he wouldn't go back now. They'd arrest him and throw him in prison, of course. But when he was there, the police were more deferential and to protesters and certainly to the media than they are in Australia. And Ron DeSantis, I don't think, answered the question, which is worse, China or Australia. He said the fact that it's even a live question shows how bad it is, and he's right on that. Let me show you how bad it is in Melbourne, which is, I don't think we need to say goodbye to YouTube to show Avi talking to the cop. So here's Avi on the streets of Melbourne. Melbourne's the large city in the state of Victoria. Melbourne's about the same size as the Greater Toronto area. It's a big city. It's a great city, beautiful. But it has been the locus of the most harsh lockdown in Australia. And it's not a coincidence that the Premier of the state of Victoria, in which Melbourne is himself a communist or a communist sympathizer. I'm not saying that as an insult. He goes to China, he meets with Chinese Communist Party officials. In fact, in one bizarre trip, he signed a secret treaty with the Communist Party in China, like a secret, like he wouldn't show what he signed. What? Now that was disallowed by the Prime Minister of Australia, who said, yes, sorry, you're just a premier or governor of a state. You're not the foreign minister for all of Australia. That's my job. I think that it shows that the moral fiber of people in the world were not genetically different than people in the 30s and 40s. And our police and our politicians and our health bureaucrats are not morally superior than they were 80, 90 years ago in Germany, for example. And in fact, in many ways, we're morally weaker. We don't have the same grounding in sources of morality like the Bible or even historical literature. We don't really learn anything in school anymore. So let me show you what it's like on the streets of Melbourne. I tell you that it was not this bad when Avi was in Hong Kong. And just that we're getting close to this in Canada. Enough preamble, take a look.
I am doing my job.
To go to the police media point.
No, it isn't.
Sir,
My job is to hold you guys accountable while you're doing your job.
Victoria Police are so desperate to stop the press from revealing what they're doing in Melbourne right now that they're actively trying to impose a media blackout, communist China and North Korea style. First, they tried and failed to ban aerial protest telecasts when 3 mainstream media companies successfully challenged that overreach in the federal court. So now, they're trying to do it on the ground.
You have no lawful right to be here at the moment.
I do have a... We do
No,
have...
you do not.
What do you mean I don't have... I'm media.
Keep moving. I don't care if you're news
Okay.
or whatever. Go
So
that
where
way,
should the
please,
media go?
gentlemen.
That way?
No media is here. So go. You go and liaise with police media.
Where's
for the
police media? I would love to liaise with...
I don't know their number.
Okay.
You call them at the VPC. But go away from here, please.
I'll tell you where it is. Go to Melbourne West Police
Do you want me to go to Melbourne West Police Station to cover the protests here?
Absolutely.
You're kidding, mate. You're kidding.
Ring them on
Slow
the
down.
phone.
Okay.
Ring them
So
on
you
the
can talk
phone.
with
Find the
you can talk
appropriate
you can talk with respect, mate. I'm not your enemy. As much as
Go, guys, please. Because you will get find the appropriate
I'm
media
allowed to
point.
be in the area, mate.
No, you're not. You're supposed to be at the media point. Now go, Jen.
Tell me where the media point is, I will go there.
I told you what to do.
You ring them. I don't have a phone.
Go away.
mate, I'm doing my job. You're doing your job.
No,
you don't.
you're not.
I am doing my
Your
job.
job is to go to the police media point.
No, it isn't.
Yes, sir.
My job
Go
is
the
to
other
hold
side
you
of the
guys
road, please.
accountable while you're doing your
Go
job.
to the other side of the road, please. Your job, gentlemen, is to go to the police
No,
media
it isn't. My job is not to do what you tell me to do as
You're
a
not allowed
journalist.
to be here. I'm
Tell
just
me
telling
where
you.
the point I can go. Excuse me. Can I speak to the media unit?
I don't know where they are. You go, gentlemen.
So you want me to find the media unit?
Yes, that's your job.
That's right. Don't engage. Do your job. I'll do mine.
Not from there. Go away.
Just move away, please.
Where can I go to do my job?
I'm not sure. You might want to get in touch with the media unit.
Well,
and they'll be able to help
they
you.
say I'm not allowed to hinder. You're not here. You're not here. You're doing your job there.
What I ask you to do is to stay away, give us some space to work, and that's fine.
There you go. I'm not going to be intimidated,
If
man.
I come to you and ask you to move away,
Listen, just because, okay, if I get in the way, I'm happy to. I'm happy to. Okay, I'm happy to. But you can't just tell me to get out of Melbourne.
Please stop talking. If you're a professional organisation, you'll have the police media number in your phone.
right.
Go bring it and find out.
He said you stopped talking to me. Why are you still talking to me?
Because you didn't listen to him. Now go away.
I did listen. He told me I could be here, so I get it. You got a badge and a gun. You're brave. There you go, Melbourne. They want to shut down the media. They think they can dictate that you just can't film them. That's what they don't want. They don't want us filming them because they've been embarrassed time and time again about their enforcement over these laws.
Let's be honest, the mainstream media doesn't mind when the police try to shut us up.
Would you agree with me that that showed tremendous courage? And the level of aggression but politeness there is very hard to get that just right. Avi didn't shout, he didn't swear, he didn't insult. Although I will say, you got a gun and a badge, you're very brave. I thought that was a good line. But the cops, so many things there. I'm telling you, your job is to go somewhere else. Nah, mate, that's not Avi's job. And it's not your job to tell him his job. I like how that cop in the end came and he knows the mask is BS, so he pulled his mask down to talk to Avi. He'll arrest someone else for not having a mask, but he put his mask down. I like the implication that they said, go ask this mysterious media officer where you're supposed to be. Okay, who's that? Well, you would know if you were a professional media organization. Mate, we are professional, a lot more professional than you are. Like just I think that some of the officers know Avi. I mean, I think they all do because he's the #1 citizen journalist in Australia, and his videos often get more views than any of the corporate media. But they also know this, that we sue police who wrongly arrest us. In fact, we are suing that very police force right now for Avi. I don't know if we're suing those particular officers. I think we're just suing the police, the Melbourne police. I think it's called the Victoria Police in general. They have falsely arrested him and assaulted him 5 times. Can we get the video of him being slammed on the ground in Melbourne last year? It was literally his first week on the job with us. And he was at a protest as a reporter. And a cop walked up to him and just said, "Arrest this guy." And Avi was so startled, shocked, he thought it was a joke. He thought it was banter. And you'll see in real time his reaction was to go, "Ha!" Because it was so absurd. "Arrest this bloke," or whatever, said the big bully cop. And Avi went, "Ha!" And then, but they did. And they didn't just arrest him. They smashed him on the ground. What is that move? Why do cops during the pandemic do that? You don't need, to arrest someone, just look at the word. You're stopping them and putting them under your own control. If they resist arrest, I can understand. But you don't need to slam a man on the ground as part of the arrest. That's got nothing to do with the arrest. Here, just a reminder for those who don't know, take a look. Audio, please.
If you watch my content before, you'll know that
Okay, let's do
sometimes
that again. I just want to
cops
hear the
walk up to
sound,
me
and I want to see him slammed on the ground.
Arrest right now. Well, I'm under arrest.
I'm just going to stop here for a second. As you can see, I was...
All right, we're taking a minute. We're learning new systems and new things. There's no problem. Here, oh, you got it? Here, take a look.
It was quite peaceful until...
Like here, he's not here for any purpose of reason. He's under arrest. But this guy here is going to be placed under arrest right now. Well, I'm under arrest. I'm media. I am media. I'm media. I've got my permit in my pocket. My permit is in my pocket. I'm fine.
Thanks. Yeah, there were a lot of other journalists right where Avi was. You can see Avi was not interfering with anything. They just said, arrest this bloke here, and he laughs. Avi laughs. And he said, you're here for no purposeful reason. What? That's not how a liberal democracy, you don't have to prove to the world that your life is a purposeful reason. You don't have to earn a policeman's approval for standing in a park, let alone doing your job as a journalist, holding that cop to account. That was the first week Avi was working with us. We sued them. They arrested him again and put him in the back of a truck. We sued them. We're suing them, I think, for 5 incidents. And I think now, because the police know that we sue, I think they're slightly less ready to bully and physically. So, and I don't use the word bully like the left. Oh, don't bully me, man. I'm not talking about the woke definition of bullying. Oh, you're microaggressing me with your trigger words. No, I'm talking about actual fists in faces, which is what the Australian police are getting known for all the way to Florida. So that was just a reminder of what the Victoria police have done to Avi, and of course we were suing them. But back to the footage I showed you of Avi yesterday, I presume. To have the knowledge of the rules and the knowledge of the law and the confidence to push back at a cop who's cop wasn't shouting, but he was speaking with authority and charisma. You go there. I think 99% of people would have gone, including 99% of journalists. Let me correct that. 99% of journalists wouldn't have even been there. In Australia, the journalists don't like to cover the brutality. It's fallen to the citizen journalists like Avi Yamini, and there's another great Melbourneian, named Rukshan Fernando, who's done a great job too.